Hi everybody, so today we're going to be painting this picture. I put a poll up on my Patreon and said we've got these three images coming up for our weekly drawing challenge. One of them is going to be a process video. Which one would you like to see? And kind of far and away the clear winner was this image, the kitchen, and it's a really beautiful image, but it's also quite complicated. There's lots going on, there's lots of things, there's lots of beautiful things, there's jars and cups and plates and chopping boards and pictures and plants, but also there's quite a lot of pattern and texture. So we've got an exposed brick wall, and we've got this beautiful parquet floor as well, and we've got some angles as well with the chairs. But looking at the open shelving and the drawers, we're quite straight on, which is a gift, so that's good. And it kind of gives us the opportunity to simplify. We don't need to include everything. So something I've been asked is, approaching an image like this, where do I start? How do I know how to edit, what to leave out? So I think with an image like this, it's good to have really have a look at it. Like when I first looked at it, I didn't even notice that there was lemons and limes on the right hand side. I noticed the bowl of oranges in the blue bowl straight away, and I know I kind of want to focus on that, but there's lemons and limes as well, there's plants, so take a little while to look at it and think about what you're drawn to. So for me, my eye is drawn to the oranges and that kind of colour interaction with orange and then the blue, and then you've got the blue in those drawers and kind of picked up in other places around. So I want to kind of play with those colours. What I'm mindful of from the very beginning is that we've got this busy pattern of the bricks, that exposed brick wall, and then we've got busy things on top of it. We've got jars and plates and that kind of thing. So dealing with that is kind of a whole other thing. So right from the beginning, I'm thinking, how am I going to paint those bricks in a way that it doesn't become too busy and then you lose the items on top? So I think I'm going to paint the bricks probably quite subtly rather than painting each one individually. I'm maybe going to paint the whole background and then just put a couple of bricks in so that you know that it's an exposed brick wall, but it's not so busy that it's fighting for attention with everything else. And the same with the floor. I think I'm going to have to do that subtly. Those are kind of our two danger areas that we spend a lot of time and effort painting every single brick, painting every parquet floor tile, and then they really grab attention from everything else and the picture becomes too busy, too cluttered. So I'm going to approach those with a lightness of touch. We've got all these objects, we've got things like this lovely kind of plate rack. Straight away I'm thinking mixed media is probably the solution for that, so using a white neocolour pastel, so that we get the detail of the kind of the light wood colour on the darker background, but also keeping it playful, keeping it fresh, keeping it stopping it from being overworked. I think for me it's good to kind of approach something like this with an intention, and for me I want to have fun with it. I want to use mixed media. I don't want to get too bogged down in tiny details. So yeah, I want to have fun. I want to kind of simplify. I want to capture this kind of nice cozy vibe that this picture has. So I'm going to get started with sketching. So I always get asked, where do you start? So for an image like this, I'm really just kind of plotting in the kind of the big things, the big elements, and getting the composition right. So halfway up we are going to have the kitchen counter, and just trying to get this all roughly in. Let's say we've got the bottom there. The challenging thing with this is the perspective. So if we didn't have the table and chairs, this would actually be quite easy. And I would say actually, if you want to just edit those out and just do the wall, the objects, the drawers, you could do that. That'd be quite easy. Like it'd be quite easy to work out what is behind the table and the chairs and not do them. I'm going to include them, but they do make the image more complicated because we've got a bit of perspective and we're kind of looking almost on top of the table. So we've got another, got open shelving up there, and then just going to roughly kind of plot in We've got pictures. I'm not going to put everything in, I'm just going to put a few things in to get a sense of scale. Got this lovely little watering can, bottles. I'm already kind of, as I'm doing this, thinking what could I use negative space to kind of capture. We've got a little plant here, and I think I'm going to kind of go back to lots of the techniques in my kind of simplifying video, so using mixed media, using negative space, editing things a bit. So I'm probably not going to have all of those jars. I think a few jars would be enough. So we've got a little plant there, and then 3 jars, and maybe the hint of some jars behind is probably enough. We've got a plant here that I want to include. We've got a jug kind of overlapping there, and then in terms of scale, we've got this plate rack, little jug here, so everything's kind of fitting okay so far. We've got another picture here, and then if I get to a point where something just isn't fitting, I have the choice between edit it out because it's making the scene too cluttered, trying to squeeze everything in. For example, I can put all the jars in, or the drawing is wrong, erase something, readdress it. So kind of in this stage, we're kind of dealing with stuff. We've got a little picture here, which is wonky, which is very cute, and it's got fishes, so that's very cute. Got really big chopping board here. We've got another one here, got quite nice shapes. And then we've got the bowls, we've got one here. Lots of oranges, and I want these to really stand out and bring some colour, because obviously there was a lot of brown in this image. And then we've got another one here. And then pots hanging. Okay, so that bit, it's busy, but it's fairly simple because we're looking flat on. I'm not going to include this bit at the side, just going to keep it simple. So we've got this wood here, and then the drawers, 3 sets of drawers, so let's put that in at the beginning, make sure we've got room. I think that's and then the handles. And then we've got table and chairs, so I'm looking the chairs kind of here, table. The big mistake if you are going to put the table in, and like I say, you could just do this and that would be absolutely fine. It's quite easy to work out where the drawers are, so it'd be quite easy to edit that out, is making the table too wide, kind of bringing it right down here. So I want to kind of overcompensate for that and make the table a little bit kind of narrower. And then, really important, is looking at what's actually there versus what I think is there. So I think the table should be that angle, but actually I'm looking at it and it's basically like that. So I need to find my eraser and adjust that. So when it comes to perspective, the best advice I can give you is double check. Make sure you're looking at what's really there, not what you think is there. And there's a difference between choosing to deliberately flatten perspective versus just getting it wrong because you've made an assumption, which is exactly what I did here. So I'm just gonna correct that. So I might just simplify it, go across, straight down, across, and then table leg down, table, kind of the depth of the table. Got a drawer here, which is cute. Chair. I love these chairs. I have these exact chairs in my kitchen. They're great. They're actually, I'm sitting on one of these exact chairs right now, so sometimes you hear my chair squeaking, and it is because it's literally over 100 years old, but they're great chairs. Okay, just looking at where this all lines up. We've got lots of chair legs from this chair as well underneath. Don't want to do too much of a bend on these. And these are tricky, but I do find it's just good practice to get familiar with things like drawing chairs, drawing sofas or couches, what have you, because every now and again in an illustration for whatever it is, greetings card, magazine, book cover, I often will need to do a chair, so it's good to be kind of familiar, especially with these kind of this kind of very classic style of chair, just kind of getting used to the shape, and then also how you're going to draw it and simplify it, how it's going to look. We've got another one here. Trying to look at the length of the legs, so looking at the bottom where they kind of are roughly in relationship to each other, which is a big thing with kind of trying to get perspective right, is just looking at where things are in relationship with each other. And the big kind of mistake that we often make with perspective is, for example, these chairs, we'd make them too circular, not oval enough, or I've made this too open, like we're looking down on it, because I know that's the shape that it is, but that's not how it actually looks. So I've got to go back and kind of close it up a bit. Let's come right up to this chair, this table leg. I always feel like it looks a bit of a mess when I'm sketching, but it'll hopefully get clearer once I'm painting. Okay, chairs and table, definitely the tricky bit, but I feel like I'm kind of happy with that sketch. I feel like the key with the chairs is going to be keeping them kind of really simplified. And then detail on the floor, I'm just going to put that in afterwards using mixed media. Okay, so I think I'm ready to paint. I'm going to mix the brick colour, so it's a really kind of reddy brown. So with something like this, I am going to go background first because I want to use negative space. And I'm just going to check that I've got everything kind of neat, sketched out that I need to avoid. So I've got these little pictures, I've got that chopping board picture there. Okay, we've got a jug, a mug. Got that bowl, that bowl. We've got this big wooden thing. I can't really tell what it is, to be honest, but I'm going to put that in. Some kind of big wooden tray. I'm going to paint over this because I think I'm going to go over it with mixed media, but I will leave space for these little jugs. So I'm going to put in plates. Okay. So starting with my warm primary colours, so we've got Flame Red, Permanent Yellow Deep and Ultramarine, which is going to create a really nice kind of muted browny, yeah, kind of muted brown colour. So lots of red and yellow, then a little bit of blue, I think a bit more yellow and red. And then to keep this in the background, I'm going to use it quite watery. I could add white to it, which would add more opacity, but I think I want to keep it kind of watery, and maybe things in the foreground will be slightly thicker gouache to bring them into the foreground. So I feel like this blue I want to be quite rich and creamy, but maybe the background is easier to keep in the background if it's got a kind of a more of a watery, transparent look. So I'm just going to start kind of painting around stuff. I've also noticed there's a glass bottle here as well. I'll put that in. So yeah, for me, background first is quite nice if you're using mixed media. You do have to work quite quickly so that you don't get kind of overlap lines. So kind of I start on the left and just work across. I mean, the wall's quite textured, so I don't mind a little bit of overlap, but you're going to need to make sure you've got enough of the colour and that you're working quite quickly. And then you can see how things are looking from a negative space perspective. So we've got bottles, jars. It looks like there's a lot of background and it's going to take a long time to fill in, but actually, because it's so densely packed with objects, it doesn't actually take a long time to fill in. I'm going to go straight over this one. I've been weighing it up, but I think the leaves are dark enough and thin enough that I'd rather just go straight over. Okay, and then we've got chunky open shelving, so then we're on to our next layer. So starting with that line, and then looking at the shape of this jug, so I really want to emphasize that. So I know I'm going to go over this with mixed media. I could paint stripes and leave it. I feel like that might get a little bit fiddly. So I'm going to go round the objects, but I'm going to paint straight over these lines. And I do love this technique using the negative space because it immediately kind of simplifies your forms and makes them a little bit bolder and a little bit more confident. And it's nice when you've got a busy image to have kind of strong simplified shapes. So going around the plates, I've realised I've missed out a load of bowls and cups, but sometimes things get edited out because I just genuinely don't see them, and then I'm like, do I need them? I think it's okay. I probably should have had a bowl here, but it's just kind of simplified it a bit. So, but yeah, sometimes things get edited out just out of genuinely not seeing them, just kind of missing them when I'm sketching, and leaving space for this lovely bowl of oranges. I'm just trying to get nice, neat, straight edges on these picture frames and this big chopping board. Just going around these pots. And then looking at this bit here, I've got the handle. It's kind of nice shapes. I've got that handle there. And then the bowl of lemon and limes. Okay, so that is the background. I did slightly go over the handle here, so might see if I can just pick up a little bit of colour. That looks a bit better. Just need a little bit there. But you can see how working this way background first has helped really define all of the objects and really highlighted some of the lovely shapes that we've got. So we've got these lovely bottles, we've got these, and then the kind of bottle shape is kind of mirrored in these chopping boards, the lovely shape of the jugs. So we're kind of off to quite a strong start in terms of balancing all these different objects because we've got that background in. So I'm just going to let that dry and thinking about mixing other colours. We've got this very warm brown. We don't want it to be kind of brown, brown, brown. So I think we need to mix some cooler browns now for a bit of contrast, and also think about mixing these lovely blue drawers. So for the cooler brown, we've got yellow, less red, more blue, Let's see where we are with that. Could be cooler. White, because that really changes the character. I find white really brings out cool tones, much more than just adding water, and it'll give us a nice point of contrast against this brown, which is very watery. This one is going to be cooler and it's going to have the white in it, so it's more opaque. So hopefully we'll have kind of a little bit of contrast. So I think it's really important in an image this busy to think about contrast and not getting too kind of muddled when you look at the image, thinking about being able to see everything clearly. So I'm going to see how this looks for the shelf. So we'll see how that looks when it dries. I find when you add white to gouache, you get this bigger change between how it looks wet on the palette and how it looks on the paper. When you're just mixing like this without any white, it's kind of more true to how it looks on the palette. So we'll see how these look, see how they dry. Nice thing about gouache is you can always go over it. You can make it lighter, darker, add mixed media. It's not a big deal. So get that one to start. I'm just thinking about this table. I might use this very light colour for the tabletop, and I think I might try and erase what I can so I don't get too much kind of smudging underneath. Kind of goes on light and then it goes darker and then it'll go lighter again as it dries, so you just have to kind of wait and see really how it's going to look, if it's going to be the colour that you want it to be. For the leg I'm going to go a little bit darker. Doing that line across there and then putting in the draw, the line. If I was doing a painting like this for a commission, maybe it was for a magazine or a book cover or something, I would have done the sketch separately and it would have been approved by the client, and then I would be working on my light box so you wouldn't have all these pencil lines underneath. But this is just a study in my sketchbook, so it's fine. I think I'm going to use this colour, maybe kind of super light, and just put in some of these details. So just putting in this big chopping board. And then using the negative space, kind of creating these other chopping boards that are here as well. this wooden tray, putting that in. Adding a hint more blue to this side, kind of bringing in shadow and depth and kind of balancing out all of these orangey tones. I'm going to use that colour for this bowl as well. It's really kind of simplifying and flattening a little bit doing these bowls. Just putting a little hint more blue in for the shadow there. So I think I'm going to paint this chair and then I'm going to put the blue in, and I think that's really going to transform it, bringing the blue in here and then some little bits in here as well. So again, using this very kind of cool light beigey colour that I've mixed for this, and then with all of this I can put more detail in with mixed media afterwards if I'd like to kind of add definition, add texture, add shadows, that kind of thing. So. And once I've painted these in, I'm going to try and erase some pencil lines as well and clean it up a little bit. So painting that back, which then kind of swoops round and kind of comes down like that. Putting the legs. The kind of side of the seat, and then putting this curve. And I know I haven't got the chair quite in the right place, it should be kind of tucked under the table a bit more, but it's not the end of the world. Just leaving a little bit of white space to kind of keep that kind of lightness of touch. With busy scenes and lots of brown, it's always easy for things to start feeling quite heavy. Okay, cool, I think that's looking good. So time to mix up some blue. So the blue definitely has kind of greeny undertones, so I'm going to use my primary blue. And then it's got a kind of a matte creaminess to it, so it's definitely going to need some white. And then to add warmth, and to mute it, I'm going to use permanent yellow deep, which is going to bring out the greeny tones but also make it warmer and more muted at the same time. So let's see how that goes. We've got blue, a little bit of yellow, lots of white, but I don't want it to go green. That's the main thing, just getting the right amount of yellow so it's not going green. But I think that looks pretty good. And when you're colour mixing like this, it's always good to just kind of walk through what you want the colour to actually look like. So, you know, rather than just going, how do I make a duck egg blue? Think, well, has this blue got greeny undertones or purple undertones? You know, if you put this blue on a colour chart, is it closer to green, turquoise, or closer to purple? It's closer to green, I would say, and to turquoise. So we're going to go for a blue that has green undertones, and then I want it to be flat and matte and kind of look painted. So I'm going to add white to it to make it solid and even. And then I want it to have those slight green undertones, so I'm adding a yellow, but if I add primary yellow, that's going to make it fresh and bright and zingy. and the blue that we can see in the picture isn't fresh and bright and zingy. It's quite quite kind of muted and subdued. So then going for this one, going for the permanent yellow deep, brings out that slight greeniness but also makes it warm and muted and subdued. So it's just whether that's too strong or whether it needs a little bit more white. I think sometimes when in doubt, add more white, because with gouache it does tend to dry darker. For a test, I might just do this little bowl here. I'm pretty happy with that, but I'll see how it looks when it's dry. But I think getting nice kind of contrast between this and the background. So I think at this point I could start putting in some background details and probably erasing some pencil lines. So some pencil lines like this I can now erase, and apologies because this always makes the whole table wobble. Some I still need, so I still need to see the definition between where these two picture frames are, but where the whole item is defined, I can get rid of that, or at least kind of clean things up a lot. Just make things a little bit cleaner and fresher. Okay, that's better, much kind of cleaner and fresher. And I'm happy with that blue. I think that's nice. I think I might go a touch lighter for these though. So I'm just going to add a little bit more white. And then the question here is, do I want to leave space for the handles or do them over the top? I feel like I want to just do them over the top, mixed media, and just keep things simple. I think that's the main thing I've got to remind myself, is keep things simple. So we've got kind of a line at the top. And then we've got the lines coming down. I've got one second line there, and then the bottom. Needs to be more there. Okay, and then I'm just going to fill those in. And I'm using my size 5 brush, which is nice for sort of filling in kind of chunky areas like this, and just using it on the side. You just get that nice wide, flat brush stroke. Just leaving a little smidgen of white space between the table and the blue, and then on the edges of this drawer. And there's pencil marks I've missed that I can go back over. And I know there needs to be a chair there, so I'm going to do that over. I need to remember where that is. I find in busy images like this, having a little bit of breathing space, having little bits of white space for me is really helpful in stopping things feeling too heavy and too cluttered. I do really like the combination of this blue with this brown. I think they look really nice together. I'm just kind of taking my time with this bit, going around all the details of the chair. And you can see how I hold my brush in different ways depending on the type of brush stroke. So if I'm filling in a big area like this, I'm going to hold it going across so the brush is like parallel to the bottom of the page, and just able to kind of pull it across nice and steady. And then if I'm filling in little details, I'm going to be holding my brush much more upright so I can just use the kind of the very tip of the brush to fill in those little details. Debating with this one whether to go straight over or go around the chair. I think I'm going to go straight over because the chair is going to be dark. We'll see how that looks, we'll see how it works. Okay. And then any little areas where I want to use a touch of this blue, so kind of on some of this crockery. So I've got it on my brush, I've added a little bit more white. So this mug here, has some blue. And just putting some in on the pottery here. Kind of picking up the design from the ones we can see below, which I forgot to include. I think that's the only places I can bring the blue in, really. Might add a little touch on the glass just to kind of move your eye around. Just outlining those little jars. And then just thinking about mixed media and where I can have fun with things. So if I want the oranges to really pop out and also stand out against this, I'm thinking mixed media. So I'm thinking Neocolor, I've got a few oranges. I think I'm going to go for these two. Just checking this is dry enough. So That's immediately going to give us a lovely bright kind of burst of contrast, and naturally going to get a little bit of white space around the oranges, kind of working in this way, which I like, and it just really pops with the blue, which is really nice as well. And then thinking about adding more depth here, just thinking kind of what colours do I have in terms of mixed media. Debating if this is going to be right or whether it's too turquoisey. This colour is so useful. It's a very kind of bluey grey from Caran d'Ache. And putting details in, I'm just thinking simple, not fussy. So putting in a line, putting a little bit of shadow in, just kind of perfect colour, that kind of bluey grey. Whenever I'm putting in little like shadows, I always try to think keeping them bold and simple and not fussy. And I can put in some of these picture frames. I'm going to use this grey. So wherever possible, I'm always trying to use the same colours, dotting them around the painting to keep things simple, to keep things harmonious, keep moving your eye around, so using the same colours kind of around. So yeah, this colour, kind of duplicating it here, and I probably use it for these jam jar tops as well. So just little techniques to stop the painting getting too busy and overwhelming, just kind of simplify things and keep it light and playful and fun. Some of these got little labels on, which is cute. Got a jar here. I don't know the little one there because they're quite nice, those little jars. Then looking at these frames, so they're more of a brown. So this is like a what's this? Van Dyke brown. Would be a nice brown for those frames. And then this one, we've got more of a kind of a golden colour. I really like raw umber for that. And it's a bit more of a complicated frame. Might put in some of the lighter yellow as well, so that is ochre. Danger with these very sharp ends is they do snap off sometimes. That one. And we've got this pot here. Again, I wanted to have the contrast from the background, so going for this neo colour, which is called English Red. So then that should stand out. Really needs to be sharpened actually. Okay, that's better, that's sharpened. And then we've got this little plant. And I'm going to go for a dark green for that. Got olive, dark green, dark olive, that is my favourite. I'm just going to move my palette for a second because I feel like I'm going to put my hand in paint any moment. So just put those in, and I've got the fruit here. So again, I'm going to go mixed media. Got Chinese green, which I love. It's one of my favourite colours. I don't normally like bright acidic colours, but I do really like this. So that's lovely for putting the lemons in. And then for the limes, I've got light olive, which is a bit more muted, but my alternative would be this one called yellow green. And for me, I think that's just a little bit too bright, so I'm going to stick with this one. Okay. Starting to come together. This is the exciting bit, where it's all starting to come together. I might put these leaves in. They're quite pretty because they're sort of got a white bit around the edge. So I'm going to do that with the olive. So putting the middle bit in, and then the edge. We'll see how that works. Giving them that variegated look. It's kind of worked. And then that pot, I can't really tell, but I feel like it's dark blue, which will be a nice bit of contrast. Just looking at my pencils, I've got ultramarine and I've got indigo. I think indigo is probably what we want. Another little end snapping off there. And then we've got the fish here, so I'm going to use the same colour. Got our little sardines. Very much simplifying them. And I think I want to put a little bit of shadow and depth into this background. I'm going to start doing some bricks. So I think I'm going to kind of overlay them with a chromatic grey, very watery, put some bricks in, and then I can also put in some shadows and some definition, because if I want to do this rack using, this dish rack using white, it needs to be dark enough behind for everything to stand out. So just making a chromatic grey, so we've got ultramarine, permanent yellow deep, and flame red. Lots of water. That's the main thing with this, really, having lots and lots of water, so it's not too dark. And then just having a go putting in some little bits of shadow. Just kind of seeing how that looks, just being very kind of subtle with it. I'm just going over this area to make sure that the dish rack is going to stand out. Just doing it very, very subtly. Yeah, hopefully that will help the dish rack kind of pop out. Just popping in some little shadows. Do you think less is more with something like this? And I think maybe I won't paint this. I'm just going to put a little bit of shadow on it to give it some definition, but not actually paint it. That's what I'm feeling. Same with this one. Just a little bit of shadow to give it that definition. And then I'm going to put some bricks in. So I'm kind of looking at the bricks, and they're quite long. Don't want to make them too short. So I'm going to see how it looks, just putting a few in. Don't think I want to do every brick, but put a few in and see. That looks kind of nice and subtle, just putting a few of these bricks in. So because this background is painted with watered down gouache, which is basically like painting with watercolours, I've lightened it by adding water and I haven't added any white. I can then paint these details on top, so the shadows and the bricks, without reactivating it. I find when it's kind of a thicker, more opaque consistency of gouache with white mixed in it, that's when you get the reactivation. And when you're using it basically more like a watercolour, you can kind of layer transparent washes on top of each other. So that's useful for creating kind of subtle shadows and bricks. And if I decide I want more detail with the bricks later on, I can just do that with mixed media. Right, let's add a little bit more detail. So let's have a go doing this plate rack, which is very cute. Let's see if the white is going to stand out, so it needs to come down here. And across. I might sharpen this neo colour pastel a little bit more. This is what I use to sharpen my neo colour pastel, so it's like a metal sharpener and it's got two sizes, so I use the big one and then just a little tin for collecting all the sharpenings. That's much better. These want to be nice and thin. That worked, and then I can kind of add a little bit more depth by putting in some shadows behind Okay, I think we're getting there, making some progress. This bowl kind of mirrors this colour, so I'm going to use the colour I used for the wall with a little bit more white, and put a touch more red in and just paint that bowl. And this jug has a black handle, so I'm going to put that in. Just deciding what colour. I've got Van Dyke Brown. I think sepia would be better. I'm not going to use pure black. I've got warm grey. I'm going to try that. And we've got the supports on the shelves, the little the brackets, so put those in. And there's another kind of rack here, so I'm going to put that in. Behind this pencil is raw umber. And I need to paint these pots, which look like they're copper. Just using kind of an initial brown colour that I mixed earlier. Thinking to get the definition, we want to be lighter in the middle for that one. And then this one, I think we can see kind of the outside more, and then I'll put some shadow in there to give some definition. Just lightening it a little bit there, so we've got the definition. I'm just putting the hook in. We've got these bottles, I think, need to feel a little bit more solid because those aren't glass bottles, they're like little stoneware pottery bottles. So just using this kind of beige colour that I mixed up earlier with a bit more white, so that I can put those in. And then I need a very mushroomy colour for the mount on these, and I need to do this lovely gold watering can, which I probably do mix media. So I'm going to take some of this brown with some white and some blue to make it cooler, to get that kind of mushroomy colour. Now I want to do that mount with just a kind of a single broad brush stroke if I can. Just leaving space for the plant and the watering can. and just leaving a little kind of smidgen of white space around the frame where I can. I think these need the just need that little bit of dark frame behind them. And we've got the watering can. And then we've got plant. It looks like it might be coriander or something, so I'm just gonna I just sharpen these pencils before filming this, and all the little tips of the pencils keep popping off, so I'm never going to do that again, sharpen all my pencils immediately before filming. And I'm probably not really selling my pencil sharpener. It is good, but it makes them very, very pointy, and the way I like to use pencils is I don't use them softly. I don't like pencils feeling kind of a little bit faint and neither here nor there. I like pencils to be really definite and bold if I'm using coloured pencils, which is quite hard on the pencils themselves. It's quite hard on the tips, so they do pop off sometimes. Just looking for a brighter green. I don't know whether that's too bright, whether that's going to be hideous. I don't know. I've got that green. I think that's okay. Trying to work out what is in this bottle. Something dark. Looking for the right pencil. So you can see I'm pressing really hard with my pencil so I get this even, deep colour. And putting in some of the kind of fillings in the jars. That's all looking good. Just give a sense that these are kind of are touching the shelf. And adding a little bit of definition to these little jugs so they stand out. A bit more definition to that little watering can. I think these need a bit of colour. Just using it again, that very kind of cool beige colour with lots of white, which I've used on a few things just to very subtly add that kind of pottery colour. Just going to very subtly put in some details on this chopping board. Okay, so these, we've got the handles. I'm going to do those very simply. I just need to choose what colour. Because they're brass, I think they're brass, but they look quite oxidised and tarnished. So I've got Van Dyke brown, I've got warm grey, I've got a cool grey. I'm just going to see if I can find sepia, that might be good. sepia almost has a hint of purple in it, which can be quite nice. But I can't find it. Okay, which one? Maybe this one. Maybe try warm grey. And just doing these really, really simply. Just making sure they're all roughly lining up. I haven't done the floor yet. I feel like floors are my nemesis. If I'm going to leave something out, it's probably most likely to be the floor. Look at where these are. And I've got to remember where the chair is going to be. I've got one chair here, and then I've got one over here, I think. And I'm going to put some detail and definition into this chair. So just looking at where the wood's darker and where it needs a bit of definition. So getting this curve, getting this edge. I forgot to put this kind of curved bit on here, so I can just add it in now. Okay, that looks a little bit more like a chair, and I'm going to put some detail in here. Okay, these chairs. I've debated it. I've thought about just doing them in mixed media, just kind of going in heavily like that. But as I've painted the other furniture, I feel like they should be painted. So I just need a nice deep brown. And I've got a kind of a dark brown chromatic grey already on my palette. And it's nice doing this with a brush because you get a lovely kind of smooth swoop to the chair, to that kind of bent wood form. So. Putting in the seat, putting in this kind of second bit here. I think the thing with chairs like this is just do it with confidence, emphasise the elegance of the form, don't worry about getting every single bit accurate, more just kind of capturing the feel of it. So I've got another chair behind here. So because this background is painted with watered down gouache, which is basically like painting with watercolours, I've lightened it by adding water and I haven't added any white. I can then paint these details on top, so the shadows and the bricks, without reactivating it. I find when it's kind of a thicker, more opaque consistency of gouache with white mixed in it, that's when you get the reactivation. And when you're using it basically more like a watercolour, you can kind of layer transparent washes on top of each other. So that's useful for creating kind of subtle shadows and bricks. And if I decide I want more detail with the bricks later on, I can just do that with mixed media. Right, let's add a little bit more detail. So let's have a go doing this plate rack, which is very cute. Let's see if the white is going to stand out, so it needs to come down here. And across. I might sharpen this Neo colour pastel a little bit more. This is what I use to sharpen my Neo colour pastel, so it's like a metal sharpener and it's got two sizes, so I use the big one and then just a little tin for collecting all the sharpenings. That's much better. These want to be nice and thin. That worked, and then I can kind of add a little bit more depth by putting in some shadows behind. Okay, I think we're getting there, making some progress. This bowl kind of mirrors this colour, so I'm going to use the colour I used for the wall with a little bit more white and put a touch more red in and just paint that bowl. And this jug has a black handle, so I'm going to put that in. Just deciding what colour. I've got Van Dyke Brown. I think sepia would be better. I'm not going to use pure black. I've got warm grey. I'm going to try that. And we've got the supports on the shelves, the little the brackets, so put those in. And there's another kind of rack here, so I'm going to put that in behind. This pencil is raw umber. and I need to paint these pots, which look like they're copper. Just using kind of an initial brown colour that I mixed earlier. Thinking to get the definition, we want to be lighter in the middle for that one, and then this one I think we can see kind of the outside more, and then I'll put some shadow in there to give some definition. Just lightening it a little bit there so we've got the definition. I'm just putting the hook in. We've got these bottles I think need to feel a little bit more solid because those aren't glass bottles, they're like little stoneware pottery bottles. So just using this kind of beige colour that I mixed up earlier with a bit more white so that I can put those in. And then I need a very mushroomy colour for the mount on these, and I need to do this lovely gold watering can, which I probably do mix media. So I'm going to take some of this brown with some white and some blue to make it cooler, to get that kind of mushroomy colour. Now I want to do that mount with just a kind of a single broad brush stroke if I can. Just leaving space for the plant and the watering can. And just leaving a little kind of smidgen of white space around the frame where I can. I think these need the just need that little bit of dark frame behind them. And we've got the watering can. And then we've got plant, it looks like it might be coriander or something, so I'm just gonna I just sharpened these pencils before filming this, and all the little tips of the pencils keep popping off, so I'm never going to do that again, sharpen all my pencils immediately before filming. And I'm probably not really selling my pencil sharpener. It is good, but it makes them very, very pointy, and the way I like to use pencils is I don't use them softly. I don't like pencils feeling kind of a little bit faint and neither here nor there. I like pencils to be really definite and bold if I'm using coloured pencils, which is quite hard on the pencils themselves. It's quite hard on the tips, so they do pop off sometimes. Just looking for a brighter green. I don't know whether that's too bright, whether that's going to be hideous. I don't know. I've got that green. I think that's okay. trying to work out what is in this bottle, something dark. Looking for the right pencil. So you can see I'm pressing really hard with my pencil so I get this even, deep colour. And putting in some of the kind of fillings in the jars. That's all looking good. Just give a sense that these are kind of are touching the shelf. And adding a little bit of definition to these little jugs so they stand out. A bit more definition to that. Little watering can. I think these need a bit of colour. Just using it again, that very kind of cool beige colour with lots of white, which I've used on a few things, just to very subtly add that kind of pottery colour. Just going to very subtly put in some details on this chopping board. Okay, so these, we've got the handles. I'm going to do those very simply. I need to choose what colour. So they're I think they're brass, but they look quite oxidised and tarnished. So I've got Van Dyke brown, I've got warm grey, I've got a cool grey. I'm just going to see if I can find sepia, that might be good. The sepia almost has a hint of purple in it, which can be quite nice, but I can't find it. Okay, which one? Maybe this one, maybe try warm grey. And just doing these really, really simply. Just making sure they're all roughly lining up. I haven't done the floor yet. I feel like floors are my nemesis. If I'm going to leave something out, it's probably most likely to be the floor. Look at where these are. And I've got to remember where the chair is going to be. I've got one chair here, and then I've got one over here, I think. And I'm going to put some detail and definition into this chair. So just looking at where the wood's darker and where it needs a bit of definition. So getting this curve, getting this edge. I forgot to put this kind of curved bit on here, so I can just add it in now. Okay, that looks a little bit more like a chair, and I'm going to put some detail in here. Okay, these chairs. I've debated it. I've thought about just doing them in mixed media, just kind of going in heavily like that. But as I've painted the other furniture, I feel like they should be painted. So I just need a nice deep brown. And I've got a kind of a dark brown chromatic grey already on my palette. And it's nice doing this with a brush because you get a lovely kind of smooth swoop to the chair, to that kind of bent wood form. So. Putting in the seat, putting in this kind of second bit here. I think the thing with chairs like this is just do it with confidence, emphasise the elegance of the form, don't worry about getting every single bit accurate, more just kind of capturing the feel of it. So I've got another chair behind here. Okay, this is all dry, so finishing touches, time for the parquet. I'm going to do this very lightly. Honestly, I'm a little bit worried with the angle, the perspective. I feel like if I get this wrong, it could make the whole picture feel wonky, so I'm a little bit worried. Trying to look at how it kind of comes out across here. I feel like I've got the opportunity to really make a mess of this whole thing. I might just kind of very subtly hint at it. I mean, I don't like things being kind of wishy-washy, but yeah, I'm just quite worried. Maybe, there's my eraser. Maybe instead of trying to do the whole pattern, I take the same approach that I took with the bricks. This is why I like doing this kind of thing in pencil, because you can take it off. Because if it goes a little bit wrong and it's constant, it can make the floor feel like it's undulating, or it's rising up, or it's falling away. It could be odd. So maybe I'll just put in the odd bit of parquet. It is beautiful, but I just don't have that kind of mathematical mind where I can get my head around it really. Okay, I think that's looking better, kind of randomly placed, and then I can kind of get the perspective with these ones being bigger, these ones being smaller. Okay, I think I might just leave it there, because yeah, I just don't have a mathematical mind. If anyone does figure out a good way of drawing this floor, I'd be very impressed. I'd love to say I have all the answers to everything, but I don't. We all have things we struggle with, and that is just kind of confusing me. So I think maybe a few more bricks would be good. I might just do them in pencil, just nice and subtly, just seeing what I feel like. I need more kind of reddy tones and also some cooler ones, so maybe some in that colour, but I kind of want a warmer red. I've got these which are very yellow toned. I've got Venetian red, maybe that would work. I've got Copper Beach. Seeing if I've got anything that would be useful. Most of my pencils are Caran d'Ache, or they're Faber-Castell or Derwent, but every now and again you get one that's basically lasted from my childhood. So I do have pencils that say things like Cool Dudes on them, and I've got a classic Crayola here. So yeah, I do have some funny ones, but maybe that one would be the right colour. You never know. Just going to start very subtly putting in a few bricks. Seeing how they look. This is kind of giving them a bit more texture as well, which is nice. Just trying to make sure that they're roughly the same size as these ones. I don't want to have like big watercolory bricks and then small pencil ones. They need to look consistent. You know what, this Cool Dudes pencil is actually kind of doing what I want it to do. It is actually the right colour, so that is nice. It's not very pigmented, but that's fine because I actually want it to be really subtle, so that's actually fine by me. Oh, there we go, breaking leads again. Yeah, it's definitely bringing the warmth that the wall needed, because it is actually a very kind of ruddy wall. But I didn't want to do this whole thing a deep red because it just could really overpower the image. So this is why I love mixed media, because you can take a step back, think, what does this image need? And then kind of add that afterwards and just gradually build it up until you get it to the point where you want it to be, until you kind of achieve that balance that you're looking for. So I love that. Okay, I think I'm happy with that. I think it definitely needed that. Just some final shadows and a little bit of detail and texture on the woodwork. Maybe just a little bit of depth here. So this is Van Dyke Brown, and I'm pressing quite hard so that we just get a subtle kind of darker brown to get a little bit of definition on these chair legs. Okay, I think we are done. That piece is finished. So I really hope this video was helpful. It's quite a long one, but I really wanted to take the time to not just show you what I'm doing, but why I'm doing it. And that's one of the things I get asked a lot is, where do you start? How do you choose what materials to use, what techniques? I really wanted to kind of take you into my thought process and show you why I was doing what I was doing, why I chose particular materials or processes. So I really hope this video has been helpful, and yeah, you have a go painting along.